Well, Adela called and asked me if I would be open to speaking at this event, and she said, okay, we want to talk about seasons. I had to smile because as of a few years ago, I started putting up a decoration in my house that's just a very simple piece of paper with words on it. It's a poem. The words to the poem are something that I wrote for a ladies' tea in Japan. And I left it there, actually. But this particular writing was done by our son, Andy. He had seen the words of the poem when he and Julie went back to Japan to introduce Julie to the country and to go visit people and favorite places. Now, I'm sure that Andy had seen this poem when I wrote it originally, but it did not mean a thing to him. But he went back and he saw it again in a different season of his life as an adult. And it ministered to him, and that in turn ministered to me. To have something that had been processed in my soul through hard times and now landed in those moments in the soul of our son was just very, very special to me. And I had thought, oh yeah, well, when he came back and showed it to me again, I said, oh, well, maybe someday I will say, hey, do you want this little poem in a little women's ministry publication in some little corner? And I never followed through on that. And this is where it got me. So this is the poem, the seed in my soul, that responded to Della's invitation to just explore the subject of seasons. And it says, seasons. Each season has its beauty, its flower, and its fruit. There is a time to blossom and a time to tend the root. Enjoy each precious moment. Don't long for what's not there. The Lord is in each season. So, don't long for what's not here. The Lord is in each season, so hold each season dear. So I already prayed, so I won't pray right now, which was what I was going to do right now. But in English, we use the word season in two ways. We use it as a noun, we use it as a verb. As a noun, it refers to a period of time. Our most common, of course, are the seasons of the year, but we also use it for any other kind of period of time. We talk about the season of our youth. And a lot of times when we talk about time, we also include characteristics specific to time. A period of time when certain conditions are present, the tornado season, or the rainy season, the tornado, or when something is ripe or best, or that are good available, so that would be like peach season maybe, or certain activities, baseball season. As a verb, it's not a period of time, it is instead the end result of a process that is intended to make something better or more useful. We season a cast iron pan by oil and heat so things won't stick. And as a result of much experience, you can become a seasoned chef or a seasoned sailor. So we use the words in that way, and thank you, Vicki, for the cleanest. Okay. Well, this is how I want to talk about seasons tonight. Let's see if I can do this without making it fall. Seasons. Periods of time given to us. They're each marked by specialized conditions, emphases, and growth edges that are intended to provide opportunities for us to grow and to develop the characteristics and mindsets of a maturing womanhood in the context of a vibrant faith relationship with God Himself. We already read our theme verse, which is, I have visualized here my time in your hand. That's what I really want to be thinking about. Well, sometimes we think of ourselves as being in one particular season, but really we're in multiple seasons, all kinds of seasons, all throughout our lives, and each one has a different opportunity, different perspective. What we call living is done in the context of time. Yes, the large ones. things that we look forward to and dread maybe in each one of these, but really more in the smaller season slots, the weeks, the days, the moments. Those are given to us. Day after day, we do wake up to living. And we're given opportunities. And those doses of dailiness and repetition are gifts from God and such a visual illustration of his faithfulness, of his patience with us. And those smaller seasons are the trenches that he is with us and offers us the companionship, helping us develop character qualities like endurance, like perseverance. Seasons is a way that we often talk about what I'm going to call the flow of life, the map, if you will. We have this sense that if we asked somebody where they were in life and they gave us one of these answers, that we would pretty much know, okay, this is what's going on in their life. In the flow, we kind of think, okay, there's childhood, there's education. After that, maybe a period of singleness, then marriage, then parenthood, then employment because you have to pay for your kids' education now, and then retirement, and then old age. It's a flow that kind of seems to describe what maybe we could expect. Maybe it would describe what others expect for us or from us. It might even describe what we believe we deserve and why we might feel cheated or less than if for whatever reason the flow doesn't go as expected. For sure, no matter what one of these that we are in, there are a lot of things to learn, a lot of opportunities, a lot of ways to grow. And there's also a lot to let go of if we are hoping to be in a season that isn't ours, for whatever reason. And we know that these same words can describe vastly different experiences for different people, even to be in the same season. I think maps are generally helpful, but I think one of the pitfalls of having a map like this, in my mind, has been to get stuck in thinking that this is the blueprint of my life. And this is what gives my life meaning and direction. I keep referring to this as my guide instead of viewing my life as a unique journey with God that may have some or all of these places to visit or stay a while, but it may not. My path may be totally different. For myself, I have been entrusted with a version of most of these. One of my big challenges as I've gone through them has been to actually be where I am instead of wishing I was somewhere else. When my mind and heart would be wishing to be elsewhere, so much energy and attention got used up idealizing this other place. It's a fictional place, really. Instead of using that energy and attention to authentically interact with God, to receive his love, his help, where I actually was. Because where we actually are is where he is with us, and where we can experience the sweetness of his presence. Well, I think of these, those up there, and these ones as the outward seasons, the ones that are obvious to all, but there are other aspects of seasons that go on in our inner world. And that would be the responses that we have to all of these specifics going on. And responses are hard. They're hard to understand sometimes because they come out in so many different ways. They can come out through our emotions, through our choices, through our thoughts, through our relationships, through our bodies. About 12 years ago, Steve and I were introduced to some inner world things that have been very, very helpful to us. Because the struggles that we were having as individuals and as a couple, we started reading the book that was suggested to us called Living from the Heart Jesus Gave You. I know both Steve and I have talked about it many times. It introduced us to explanations about emotional responses, and it introduced us to what was called the maturity indicator. Now, I don't know about you, but just to hear the word maturity is not necessarily positive to me. It immediately takes me to memories of my older sister, who's only a year and a half older than I am, letting me know in no uncertain terms that I was so immature. And just to think that maturity could be measured somehow just felt very, very threatening to me. And I approached this indicator with a very guarded heart and kind of wanting to keep a distance from it because I felt it was going to be my judge. And I remember that when we were reading this book, we were going down to eat in Wichita, and I was reading the book out loud as Steve drove. And I was very defensive as I read it. And every few sentences, I would just go, "Oh, you've got to be kidding." It's like, ah! But the truth of the matter was it made so much sense. There is a quip that says, I think we've probably all heard it, growing old is not optional, but growing up is. And the point being, the passage of time and even gaining skills in these do not, in and of themselves, grow a person from the inside into someone who has a greater and greater capacity to receive love, to give love, to be relational in ever deepening and widening spheres. And that's what this was about. It's like, ah. So we know life skills are one category of seasons and being seasoned, and emotional growth is a whole other category of seasons and being seasoned. I called them out the flow. This I'm calling a stacking. In the flow, there is no requirement that each stage be gone through. Seasons can be skipped. Seasons are often repeated. But in the emotional maturity stacking, if you miss something, you end up with a hole. Levels have various components, so if you saw the top of it, you could see that there's kind of divided it into at least 4 there. And levels build on each other. So, if one of the components of a season has not been completed, there is no foundation to have the next level build on it. And since no growth has been able to root there, it leaves a hole to fall into. Steve and I have experienced many holes, and we haven't understood what was happening. There were undeveloped areas in our emotional and relational capacities that had nothing to do with physical age, only emotional age. Tragically, it is very possible to be very old in years and very young in emotion and relational skills. So Steve uses this smaller illustration when he talks about it in class. You can see there's different levels, and that each one is made up of multiple things, skills. And so here is our undeveloped area, the whole, okay? So let's pretend I'm somebody, so I did it in these same infant maturity, child, adult maturity, parent maturity. It had nothing to do with age, only emotional ability, okay? So here we have, the green would be that you were going to be a child. But if the child has not developed even those basics of infant maturity, when he has to deal with this subject matter, boom, he responds as an infant, not as a child. And the scary thing is, here is elder, where maybe I should be. And if I want to respond to a place that I have not grown enough to respond well, boom, I am now in either infant or child response skills. It's very sobering. Very sobering. It is hard to drop into a hole. Communication pretty much gets derailed. Both Steve and I used to go to intense emotions of shame and inadequacy. And then you end up relating out of blame and with self-pity. We still fall into holes, but we have grown. I've gotten over my resistance to this indicator. It is not a judgment tool that proves my immaturity. It's a great diagnostic tool, and it has been very helpful for us to understand where we are, what to work on, and I highly recommend it to you. Well, sometimes as I look at these inner and outer opportunities for growth, I'm excited and I'm challenged, and sometimes I'm frightened and I'm overwhelmed. One thing, like everybody, you're trying to do it right, and I would love some semblance of control. And I have to keep reminding myself, rightness and control is not the goal, growth is. So let's read our definition again. Seasons, periods of time given to us, each marked by specialized conditions, emphases, and growth edges that are intended to provide opportunities for us to grow, to develop the characteristics and mindsets of a maturing womanhood in the context of a vibrant, faith relationship with God himself. So I want to move into a couple thoughts about that last line, the vibrant faith relationship with God himself. Our lives, our seasons, are lived in a context. In a geographical context, for sure, but a generational thought in our families, and in the specific current places and people and events. We're called to take our place in the story, to grow up, to stand strong, but things can get distorted pretty easily, and it's important to keep asking, what is the main story for all of this? And it's been very stabilizing and comforting to me to deliberately step back from all these details and to remind myself of the big picture. What is the context that all these seasons are in? Now, I have shown this picture before. I kind of introduced it when I went to the ladies' retreat a couple years ago. Frankly, this picture is still a part of my daily faith walk, okay? I know there are a lot of things this picture doesn't depict, but it has helped me put a few things very solidly into perspective. This little line depicts time, all of time. You and I, okay, we know from time, there's a beginning, there's an end, and you and I are somewhere right over here. Our whole lifetime is just a speck on this line. But what I find so encouraging, that little speck of us and this whole line is solidly and safely, it firmly planted in the middle of a glorious reality, God himself, pictured by this beautiful golden material. We are in God's heart. We are in his story. It is an incredibly safe place to be. As we go through all of this, we are never out of his sight or his care. And almost every day that I wake up, I try to set my mind on this, and it settles my soul. The picture also depicts that we are not the only beings in God's story. And interestingly, Pastor Dave has been talking about this quite a bit in the Daniel messages that he's said. Before we humans were created, God created angels, and he shared his love with them. They are depicted by the blue material. We don't know much about their story. The Bible really doesn't tell us much. We know they're powerful. We know they serve God. We do know from the Bible that at some point, the second-ranked angel rebelled against God, and a third of the angels followed him. So they're depicted by this dark story. And since that time, they have been in active warfare with God. So our context, we are this line. Our context is totally safe in God's story, but also in the middle of warfare. It isn't just Christians who are in the middle of the warfare. Everybody's on this line. Every human born on earth is in the middle of this. So what do I see in this picture? I see the glory, the beauty, the greatness of God himself. The value of life and the privilege given to God to be in his story. The realities of active and constant opposition to God and to us, but also the reality that good and evil are not the same size. God is infinitely bigger, more powerful. And I see the limited nature of time. When I feel like I can't make sense of time, get worked up about everything that's going on over here and around me, I fear the loss of control, I find comfort and stability. Focusing my mind. I am in God's story. You are in God's story. He knows us. He sees us. He's glad we're alive. He's powerful. He is in control. He wins. Our time on earth is short, and we think we're in the land of the living, headed for going to the land of the dying. But we are in the land of the dying, headed for the land of the living. That is hope. Well, in this illustration that shows the big picture, we're lumped together into this itsy-bitsy little dot here on a very short line, and we take what seems like, in this context, a very, very small place in a huge and magnificent story. However, that is all true, but however, it is equally true that we stand out individually. And God's great passion is to establish a direct and growing connection with each person on earth so that we can know the deep pleasure of his companionship. That's mind-blowing. We are each one of us cherished, sought after, uniquely guided and sustained. Each of us has a different history, different character flaws, different talents and gifts to develop, different calling and destiny. But I think we can accurately say that for all of us, his goal is always connection with him and companionship. I love the reality of that. But I also struggle with the reality that spiritual things can seem confusing, unclear. We live in a season of faith, not sight. I've been very blessed to be part of the family of origin, where my parents were believers in and followers of Jesus. From birth, my context of life has basically been the Christian way of doing things. My parents tell me that I accepted Jesus when I was 2. I have no memory of that, and I can't even fathom that I would have understood what was going on. What I considered to be my faith response in Jesus was when I was 15. But every one of my challenges that has come in any of this stuff has been in the context and culture of Christianity, even though the geography has been in a lot of different places. So I'm used to hearing and even talking about salvation and heaven when we die. And for many of us who responded to Jesus when at an early age, we have had years and years and years to live doing all these things between those two stakes in the ground. I came to Jesus for forgiveness. He saved me. Someday I'm going to heaven and I'm going to live with him. What about all this time in between? And I asked myself, okay, so now that through Jesus I am reconciled, reconnected to God, how is that connection expressed? Is it mostly just looking back there to when I'm forgiven? Or looking ahead to when I will see him face to face? And in between it's just like, okay, just kind of hang in there. Let him know you're grateful. Serve him well. What does it mean? Good question. I want to have that vibrant faith relationship that the Bible talks about. And as I have understood more of the dynamics of the emotional responses here, I have begun to connect that understanding to my being in relationship with God. And I'm seeing there are areas of confusion. There are holes that I fall into. What I know in my head, that faith information that's stored up here in the left side of my brain, is not the only thing that is influencing how I am responding to God. What I say and believe is not always how I live. I'm responding to God out of a combination of things that are maybe fully developed spiritual understandings and capacities and holes. And I think it's pretty safe to say we're all doing that. And since it's to talk about my journey, I will say that in my particular blend of stability and holes over here, I have struggled with the concept of connection that's part of true relationship. My life has had a lot of comings and goings on multiple levels. And so for me to just settle into a relational closeness that doesn't change, that doesn't go away, is pretty much beyond my ability to fathom, much less enter into. And I don't want to look at Julie or I'll cry. Okay. And because the loss of relationship is so painful, it has felt safer to just kind of set up some protective walls. Just to see myself and often kind of keep myself in only a semi-connected mode and not really letting my heart rest in relationship. So applying that to how I respond to God, my faith words often say, I am in a relational connection with God. But the reality is that more often than not, my heart responds in this guarded, doubting way. And when I'm not enjoying the safety and the support of true relational connection, when I'm not enjoying that, I am actually responding more to my anti-faith, non-relational convictions rather than to the faith information that's there. And that puts that faith information, that truth about God, into an unusable condition because I'm believing something else is more true. So for my soul to relax in the relationship that God is offering and pursuing, I definitely need to know that the connection is sure, that it's secure, that He will always welcome me to be with Him. Now, I know this comes as a surprise, but I love tangible illustrations. So I was going, Jesus, what's the picture of connection? And I kind of wanted something just way out there that nobody had ever thought of before. Didn't happen. It's an amazingly beautiful and wonderful, familiar picture that came to my mind, and I want to set it up here. I want to use, again, the beauty of color rather than words. So connection, reconciliation, which is reconnection, has to start where we were connected, which is God and His beautiful creation, Adam and Eve, connected and together. And God made Adam and Eve alive in body, but also just like Himself, alive, giving them glory and importance and intelligence and responsibility and choice, and that open and clear communication together. It had to be glorious. And the unthinkable happens. We tore the connection. We left the security and the sureness of what we had and responded and looked for something possible to make us better beings. And we left God. We call it the fall. Just imagine the fall. But fall is just such a tame word to think of the tragedy of what actually happened. I mean, horrible things happened. I can't imagine having had God's life and then to lose it, to have had strength and power and to lose it, to sense the twistedness, and to have those responses then of defensiveness and blame and self-obsession and shame be part of life where it wasn't before. The separation was and is, of course, humanly insurmountable. But again, the unthinkable happens because even as we pulled away and the enemy of our souls rejoiced, and remember, I'm thinking creation here, okay? But God reveals what He had already purposed. This is at creation, okay? He had already determined and made provision for reconnection. He takes the initiative. He shoulders the whole burden of it. He puts the connection piece in place. It's safe and secure. Now I know, the wooden cross on which Jesus died takes place at a different time in our earth time. But the Bible tells us in many places that before the creation of the world, God already had determined that the way back to reconnection was going to be through Jesus and His resurrection. So this is so safe. It is so secure. It's not earth time related. It is from God. It's an event, but it's a plan. It has always been the connection passage between God and humanity. The passageway that's always open, meant to be used, traveled as a bridge. Jesus Himself and what His death accomplished is the connection. That's what I need to know. What's my connection, okay? Is it safe? Is it not? That provides the way for God to continually pour His love on us, to give us spiritual life and blessing. So as far as God's concerned, He has always offered connection. The connection challenge is not His. The connection challenge is ours. It's ours. How open am I? When I accept I move to opt to accept what he has given, when I accept his payment for sin, reconnection is accomplished. It is established. Forgiveness is given, heaven is assured, and I enter into that season between those two stakes in the ground. And that's the season for us to grow up spiritually, to enjoy the blessings and privileges of family connection and bonding in God's steadfast love, to respond to the love, to learn to love him in return with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength, to learn to see earth life like God sees it, to learn to overcome evil with good, with the wisdom and power of God in me, to learn to stand in the authority of Jesus and accomplish God's purposes on earth, and to become proficient in warfare, spiritual warfare, both offensively and defensively, to help others learn to come to the place of connection too. So on the back of the programs is Ephesians 2, 4 through 7, and also chapter 3, verse 12. And I want to read that. It's got so much in it, but there's one particular picture of a relational thing that I was particularly drawn to. Let me read it. But God, being rich in mercy, because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved, and raised us up with him, and seated us with him in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus, so that in the coming ages he might show the immeasurable riches of his grace and kindness to us in Christ Jesus, in whom we have boldness and access with confidence through our faith in him. Well, like I said, there's so much in those verses, but I'm looking for this relational connection picture. And I was so just drawn by these words. He seated us with Christ. And my mind is going, I'm here, and guess what I get to do? And sit right here. That was the picture that came to my mind. As far as God is concerned, through Jesus, we already have a place in heaven. It's not only the future. We're not allowed in just because we're perfect or qualified, but because we are in Christ. We have this secure connection and open access to God himself. And he tells us to be bold. Us to be bold. And now, enter heaven any time to connect with him. So chairs. Chairs have always been used as an illustration of faith, because chairs are meant to be places where we rest the weight of our body. But there are chairs and there are chairs. I don't know if you saw this one over here. This one's in our basement. And it works fairly well for the grandkids if they don't wiggle too much. If they ask me to sit on it, I have to pretend to be sitting on it because it does not bear my weight. But here's a chair from the nursery, the mother's nursing room chair. This chair is totally capable of bearing my weight and having it be a wonderful and refreshing experience. And that is the kind of faith response chair experience that God wants us to have with him. It isn't always easy. The promo blurb was, let's ask ourselves, how is the portion of our usable faith growing? That word up there, I put it. I saw the term in a book recently, usable faith. And I was just so intrigued by it. The author was talking about exactly what I'm seeing in my own life, that discrepancy that is often between what I know in my head and the reality that I'm actually living out in my own life. It's crazy how sometimes it feels more appropriate and profitable to fret, to blame, to talk to somebody, to manipulate, rather than rest the weight of who I am and what I'm going through on God. But when I respond that way, my faith information that declares that God is trustworthy becomes unusable because I am believing something else is more true and appropriate. Knowledge of God comes to our minds in accurate information, but it also comes in as distorted information sometimes. And distortions about who God is and how he's caring for us often come in difficult experiences, in traumatic memories, and the distortions feel like they're accurate. And so we act on them, we respond. But in reality, they are anti-faith beliefs that keep us from entering into and enjoying our connection with God. Well, that author went on to say that he believes that finding and resolving those anti-faith beliefs is one of the most powerful things that we can do to grow our portion of usable faith. It isn't easy, but it's good. It's good to take God's hand and wade into the swamp that is our soul. And honestly, to assess that knowledge that we have in our responses to God. We know that our faith, is more precious to God than gold is to us. And so it is his passion to make sure that our faith is strong, that it's genuine. And he makes it his priority to give us opportunities to develop it and to exercise it. We do live out our seasons in that inescapable brokenness, but we have that amazing and solid, secure connection with God Almighty. When we respond to God, as he makes us aware of our areas of growth, we will become exactly who he has in mind for us in each season. The present one, and the next one, and the next one. Spiritual growth and intimacy with God are cultivated by attending to what is current between us and God. And spiritual maturity is not something for later on. There will always be more to discover about God. But we are mature at each level when our understanding of him and the response of our heart to him is in balance. Let's say together our verse on the front of it. Okay, the Psalm 31, 14, 15. I trust in you, O Lord. I say, you are my God. My times are in your hand. Let's pray. Father, thank you. Thank you for seasons. Thank you for time. Thank you that you have made it so available to us to be with you through Jesus, and just welcome us to come boldly before you, to come as we are, and to rest in you. And so, as these thoughts have come, I just ask that you would guide us into whatever place that you want us to go as our next step, and just increase our store of usable faith, I pray. Thank you for this time that we've had together. In Jesus' name, amen.